What's up, everybody? My name is Joneser, and this is the MOTU Joneser channel here on YouTube. One of the most common questions some of my friends have asked me is, what does MOTU stand for? Well, MOTU stands for Masters of the Universe. These are the Wave One releases. I think I've got all of them here, mostly complete. First things I want to get into is when Mattel came out with these toys, it was supposed to knock Star Wars off the block. Star Wars was the big bad toy, and nobody, for boys action figures, there was nothing else. They had 3 major movies going with it. Wasn't easy for anybody to compete. What I have here is what a Star Wars toy typically was sized like. I don't have any Star Wars toys. I don't collect them. But this is about what we were looking at. So as you can imagine, I'm gonna try to stand this up here. When He-Man came out, these figures were notorious for not being able to stand. You see it as a size comparison here. I mean, there's really not much for comparison. I mean, He-Man was just, he'd knock the heck out of a Jedi. Look at this guy, he's huge. His arms were bigger than the Jedi's whole body. He'd pick up Luke Skywalker and break him in half. First up, we have Merman. He is the Ocean Overlord. Merman came with a yellow sword-like thingy. As kids, we used to call it like a corn cob. The bluntest looking sword I've ever seen. It had a little yellow armor with a little bow tie on it. I'm not sure how well you guys can see this. I always thought of Merman as being fairly capable. In the mini comics that these figures came with, there was some, I remember one picture where Merman defeated He-Man, and it was emblazoned in my mind as a child. So I always thought this guy was pretty awesome. You always got to love that Merman voice from the cartoon. As kids, we used to always try to imitate that. So much fun. Next up, we have Beastman. Beastman was Skeletor's main henchman. He came with a whip. Mine's a little frayed. He's another one that's hard to stand. That's why I got this little stand for him. Beastman has some spiky armor. His powers, like he would control beasts mentally to do his bidding. He was like the beast master. Again, very savage. In the cartoons, Skeletor picked on him a lot, made for some good comedy, and Beastman was a lot of fun. Next is a figure, Stratos, the Winged Warrior. Stratos is very special to my heart because this was the first He-Man figure that I ever had. My father found him in a dumpster. He had no armor or weapons or anything. It wasn't until as an adult collector that I got all the cool bits that came with him. He had red wings and a rocket pack, so we always thought that was cool. The guy could rocket fly over and take out the bad guys. It's Beastman here, and Stratos come flying in, bang, fun stuff. So we enjoyed Stratos. Next up, we have the only female character in this. This would be Teela. Teela was the warrior goddess. In the cartoon, Teela was Man-at-Arms' daughter. And she's another one of those figures. It's really hard to get them to stand. Oh my gosh, I did it. Like a strong gust of wind would blow that character over, I swear. Anyways, she had a shield and a little snake staff, and as kids we would argue if she was the goddess or if she was Teela. In the comics, there was a character called the Goddess that gave He-Man his powers, although she was green. I always felt like Mattel was doing something sneaky here with Teela, because if you took the armor off, she could be Teela, and then if you put it on, she could be the goddess. I almost felt like they were trying to get like 2 figures out of one or something like that. Now in the cartoons, this character had a mustache. He was the older, wiser one that kind of, you know, guided He-Man and Teela. This is Man-at-Arms. Man-at-Arms here I have in the Wind Raider, because I always felt like the Wind Raider was Man-at-Arms' vehicle. It was color coordinated with him, you know, and he kind of, you know, it looked like it was for him. But the Wind Raider was kind of like a rescue vehicle. It's got this little hook. It's got this really cool feature. You take this hook out and drag it out. You could kind of hook one of these guys and rescue them. And if you turn this little deal here, you could reel the figure in. It made for some cool play as kids, you know. Man-at-Arms came with this little club, beaten stick, you know. For somebody they called the master of weapons, for him to have just a club to whack somebody over the head with. You know, it wasn't that cool to me, but you know, you look at this thing, it looks like it could hurt. Moving on to the other vehicle in the list here, we have the Battle Ram. The Battle Ram, you know, is a land vehicle, or so you would made to think, you know, to roll around, and it had a pretty cool little gun in the front and a cannon here, which we'll see if we can show you how this works here. Oh, right into your living room. Yeah, the Battle Ram was pretty fun for me as a kid. I loved this thing, but the coolest feature on it was when you were done being a land vehicle, if you took this baby apart, you could set old He-Man or Man-at-Arms or whoever on it, and you have a flight vehicle, which, you know, had the little cool thing, and in the comic it had like a space warp drive. It was very, very cool. You know, and He-Man in the original comic, he rode around on the Battle Ram. Man-at-Arms had the Wind Raider. And you would be led to think that that was He-Man's main mode of transportation, but we'll get to him later. Next character is a very personal favorite of mine. This is Zodak. Depending on what box art you saw, he was either the Cosmic Enforcer or the evil Cosmic Enforcer. The thing that made him unique to me, he was the only one of these guys that had a gun. That's right, we all saw Indiana Jones, so you know, old Indy, he sits there and he just pops in, bang! I got the gun, I win. As kids, we thought that was cool. This dude's got a gun. Everybody else don't have one. He must have some kind of advantage. And we used to like to argue, is he good, is he bad? You know, was he an evil guy? In the cartoons, he was mostly represented as a good guy. I don't know. It was fun to play with him. Now, the battleground of this whole thing was Castle Greyskull. Castle Greyskull was supposed to be, you know, what everybody was fighting for, what was all on the line. This was the coolest playset ever. If you were a kid in the 80s, I didn't need to tell you that. You knew that. Every kid wanted this thing. Mine's missing all the parts and is filthy, and I'm happy to have it. You know, I mean, I'll try to assemble the parts for it later, but I mean, this thing was cool. You know, and if you took the two halves of the power sword, He-Man had one half, Skeletor had another, and if you stick them together, that was supposed to unlock the door to Castle Greyskull, and then you would gain all its secrets. And I mean, and this thing had a trap door, an elevator, a weapon rack, stickers galore. I mean, this was the coolest playset you could hope to have. It really was. Moving on, we've got the Lord of Destruction, Skeletor. This was by far my favorite character. You just look at this guy. I mean, it's like looking death in the face. He has no face. This guy is just the evil, you know, and I always like to play him more that way. In the cartoons, he was a little more buffoony, you know, and it wasn't as threatening. Whereas I felt like this guy should be, you know, just evil. I mean, that cartoon guy, he was fun too in a different way. But, you know, I mean, for kids, you know, you want it to be cool. You know, I mean, Darth Vader was scary. This guy had the potential to be way scarier if they didn't play him as a buffoon, you know. But I don't know, that buffoon kind of grows on you too. He was fun, you know, and it was cool to see him get knocked around. But yeah, Skeletor, he had the Havoc staff that he could do his magic, and then he had the other half of the power sword. So, you know, Skeletor was a pretty formidable guy. He wasn't somebody you wanted to mess around with. We mentioned earlier the Battle Ram was He-Man's main mode of transportation, but it really wasn't to be. It was this thing. This is Battle Cat. A Battle Cat is He-Man's main mode of transportation. And if you just think about this, you know, you're sitting there and you're a bad guy, and all of a sudden this dude comes riding up on this thing, and he's, you know, gonna tell you to mind your P's and Q's. I'd be scared to death if some muscled up warrior rode up on a saber-toothed cat wielding an axe telling me to knock it off. But Battle Cat was fun. His helmet was removable. I think the original play was this was a big gym toy. This is a great story. And I guess they were using running out of tooling money to make the toys. And they just molded these things, even though, as you can see, it's not to scale. You know, the figure should be taller for the cat to look right. And the guy says, "Oh, the thing's too big. It looks like a horse." And one of the coolest, you know, coincidences, you know, whatever of all time, the guy said, "We'll put a saddle on it." Bang! Put this thing on there. Magic. And this is an iconic image of He-Man riding Battle Cat into battle. You know, and of course we couldn't have He-Man and the Masters of the Universe without He-Man himself. He-Man was the most powerful man in the universe. Now, to most people nowadays, or even kids, that sounds like, wow, you know, really? Over Superman? Yes, He-Man was the most powerful man in the universe. He beat everybody. He beat Luke Skywalker. He beat Skeletor. He was the man. He came with an axe, a shield, and the power sword. Now, in the original comics that came with the figures, He-Man kind of crawls out of the jungle. The goddess gives him his equipment and powers and whatnot, and then that's how he's made. Later on, they did a cartoon where it was, you know, very different from that. And that was fun too, I guess. It kind of had like a Captain Marvel vibe to it, where the wimpy guy turned into the strong guy. Well, we all saw that iconic image where, you know, He-Man, he lifted the power sword into the air and he said the magic words, you know, "By the power of Greyskull," and he transformed, and then of course he'd come up and he'd punch the screen, and you know, it was emblazoned in our little kid minds, you know, and we were all brainwashed from that point on, really. And you know, buy these things, and it was really it was marketing genius on Mattel's part, really, because, you know, I mean, as kids we were obsessed. You know, Star Wars, what? He-Man, you know, and you go to the stores and you could get these things, and it was really the first time that they'd had, you know, a cartoon go along that was basically a 20-minute commercial to buy the toy. And yeah, it got us, you know. And I mean, later on, brands like, you know, G.I. Joe and Transformers and Ghostbusters and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you know, really, you know, took this to another level. And, you know, but they learned this trick from He-Man. He-Man was the one, the prototype, the one they all wanted to be, you know. So I'll probably do videos in the future going through the Wave 2 figures. You know, I'm having a lot of fun recording these and sharing my stories with y'all. You know, I mean, we played these things as kids, and you know, and here I am, 40 years old, and I never forgot. It's still a very special place in my heart. So, you know, till next time, and you have the power.